day.
Yeah.
And kind of finally, it seems like maybe there's one more area in which roofers often have a lot of mistakes, maybe seem to fall, seem to have kind of outdated practices. And so let's maybe transition a little bit into like the kitchen table, right? So the close, the inspection and the close. What's happening there? What are the mistakes that many roofing sales reps are making?
So this can be this can all be, but I'll pick the one thing that's missing from most people's door or closing presentation that opens up all kinds of problems. It opens up things for bid collecting, eating the deductible, all of that, which is not clearly explaining to the customer, probably because the rep doesn't understand it fully either, the process of collecting recoverable depreciation. So people constantly are emailing me and saying, I'm losing like other bids. People want me to give them a price instead of showing them the exact amount. They won't show me their cards. They got their insurance paperwork, but they won't show me what the adjuster paid for, or they're asking me to pay their deductible and I'm telling them it's fraud and none of this is working. How do I overcome these objections? And I'm like, well, you missed your opportunity to prevent the objection in your sales pitch. Right. And that's something that I need, like contractors and salespeople need to understand is a lot of the issues they're dealing with is because the source is they're dropping the ball in their actual sales presentation. All of the problems that are floating out here that they're having after they've gotten a contract signed is because they didn't do a good enough job during the sales presentation to educate their customer. So what do I mean by that? Well, depreciation clears up, the proper explanation of it prevents all those objections because it helps people see how the money works. So here's what I like to tell people. For example, what they used to do, what the insurance company used to do is State Farm would come out and say, okay, Mrs. Jones, yes, you've got damage to your roof and it's going to be $10,000 total to replace it, right? You have a $1,000 deductible. That's the portion you're responsible for, right? And we pay for anything above and beyond that $1,000. And they used to write one check for $9,000 and say, here you go fix your roof. What do you think some people did with a big fat check for $9,000? New car,
yep.
right? Mrs. Jones, I don't remember you being that chesty before, right? So, or they would go, sweet, we have a check for $9,000. We need a new roof. Let's have Uncle Joe come over with his buddies on a Saturday afternoon drinking Coors Light, and we'll pay them $7,000 or $6,000, right? And then we'll save the rest of the money and we won't pay our deductible. So people got away with that for a really long time, but eventually the insurance companies were like, all right, we're not in the business of buying people new hot tubs and motorcycles. Like, what's a way that we can protect ourselves from doing this? So they started using Xactimate. They started putting mortgage companies on the check. So the mortgage company has to sign off to make sure the work is done. But they also started withholding depreciation. So this is where it gets tricky, and it actually gets good because it really benefits the contractors to know this, because now they can charge top dollar and collect it because I'll get into that in a second. So let's say that the claim is still $10,000, right? State Farm says, yes, you have damage, Mrs. Jones. It's still $10,000 to replace it. You still only pay $1,000 out of your pocket for the deductible. We're still willing to pay $9,000, but instead of writing one check for that, we split it into two. We're going to give you one check up front, the ACV, the actual cash value, which is as your roof is right now and the age and the condition it is, that's what it's worth. Let's say it's $6,000. So here's $6,000. Go get started. We are withholding $3,000 in depreciation until the roof is done. And if you can prove to us that it's done afterward, it's recoverable depreciation, but you have to send an invoice. So now what happens? Well, if Mrs. Jones goes, cool, we're getting $9,000 from the insurance company, let's still have Uncle Joe or Joe Blow or, two trucks in a truck or whatever come over and do the roof. And they say, yeah, we can do it for $7,000. Mrs. Jones thinks, sweet, we're going to pocket $3,000. But what would happen is, unless you provide fraudulent documentation, which is insurance fraud, Mrs. Jones would say, here's our invoice, we finished the roof. And State Farm looks at it and goes, oh, you got it done for $7,000. Well, we already paid you $6,000. You paid your $1,000 deductible. That's the part you owe. That's $7,000 to cover the roof. Thanks for saving State Farm $3,000. You're our brand new favorite customer. Right? Or if they go and buy a hot tub, there is no invoice. So apart from committing insurance fraud, which would be sending in a false invoice, lying and saying that you did the work, or the contractor lying and saying we charge 10 when really they charge 7,
Right.
you can't, it doesn't save anybody money. So if you don't pay the deductible, and that's why it's insurance fraud, if the contractor waives the deductible, let's say, right, what that means is they didn't charge $10,000 for the roof, they charged 9. But in order for the insurance company to release all the depreciation, they would have had to have charged 10,000, right, because the insurance company's only going to cover whatever the roof costs minus the deductible. So you can't waive a deductible. There's no such thing, right?
Right.
So that's a huge thing, is in the sales presentation. And I know that was like a big roundabout way to do it. I have it scripted verbatim with this perfect little chart that's so easy. I only one time in my whole life, this is not an exaggeration, one time in my whole life selling roofs did I ever have a deductible objection. And it was when I was brand new and I still didn't really know what I was doing. Once I figured out the perfect way to demonstrate, describe, and illustrate depreciation to my customers, I never got bid collector arguments. I never got deductible leading requests. You can eliminate that from your whole sales process if you know how to explain that properly.